Hey guys, I'm Mark,
I'm Alon.
and welcome to another episode of The Next Man Up. Well, welcome listeners to the Next Man Up podcast, where we are about raising up the next generation of men, because we believe that when boys become godly, healthy men, everyone benefits. This is your host, Mark Stanifer, and once again, I am pleased to have my co-host in studio with me today, Alon Auguste.
What's up?
Good to see you again, my friend.
Yes, always good to see you.
Yeah. How are things with you?
They are moving.
Moving. Okay.
Yes.
Well, maybe we'll have to unpack that. Given our previous episode around vulnerability, you dodged the everything is good.
Yes,
it's all fine, right?
It's moving.
It's moving. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. We can spend a whole entire podcast and more on that content, but hey,
You're here.
I'm here.
It's good to be with you.
You as well, friend.
And it's good to be able to share this medium and this conversation with you.
Agreed.
Well, listeners, before we get into our topic for today, I just want to ask again for your help. We want to expand the reach of this conversation, and we're just asking if you are enjoying what you're hearing and have somebody in mind that you think would benefit, just send them this podcast. Tell them a couple things that you like about what's happening here, and invite them to listen in as well. The work that we are doing is important work because we need boys to grow up to be men.
Yeah.
And when that happens, everybody benefits. And so
Agreed.
if you want to be part of that cause, then just share this episode with somebody and tell them that it's worth listening in. And we certainly would appreciate that.
Agreed. Yep.
So, technology.
Oh, our friend.
Our friend, technology. We were talking about millennial parenting a couple of episodes ago, and some of the trends and the themes that define millennial parents. And one of the things we didn't even get to was the influence of the internet, the influence of smartphones, and the speed of change at which technological devices are evolving. Yeah. Like it's crazy to think of what's happened in the last 2 decades relative to what's happened in the last 2 centuries technologically, right? It's
insane.
It is insane. And I can't even imagine what's coming that people are working on today, right? Like if we've seen all of this change in the last number of years, what is coming down the road that we don't even have I certainly don't have the ability to comprehend. So it's a big deal.
It is a big deal, man. And I know it's not like we're not. I remember when I was in school, it was like, by the year 2000, we'll have flying cars.
Right.
Jet
George Jetson.
You know what I mean? And in a sense, you know what? I was watching some videos, and there actually is a vehicle, actually a couple of vehicles made. They're not out for the public to buy, I don't think, but they're land, air, and sea vehicles.
Wow.
Where, it's the weirdest looking thing, but it flies, it lands, you can drive it, and then you can also roll it onto some water and have a nice little speedboat.
Wow.
Even take off from the sea to the air. I'm like, what is going on?
Wow.
What are we doing with our lives? This is crazy. It's amazing. But man, it's not like that, like George Jetson. But dude, we've had some serious breakthroughs.
Well, in some respects, it's a phenomenal time to be alive.
Yeah,
right?
Man.
Like we have, listening to you talk about that, we now have a couple of companies competing for tourism flights into space.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, think about it. You used to run to the television when they would say, another spaceship is going up to the moon,
right?
Or out into space, and it's like watching it go off from like Florida. It's like, oh my gosh, I never get to do that, but it's awesome. I get to watch. You might just have a chance in the next decade.
The price point is still pretty prohibitive for the average person.
For the average, but You can do it.
That's right.
That's awesome, man.
That's right.
Technology, it's advancing really fast.
And there's so many beneficial ways to utilize the technology. I just think this is simple, right? But my parents are in Michigan. My brother and his wife are in South Dakota. We're here in Ohio. And guess what? We were all together virtually for a Christmas celebration. We just had a 3-way video call.
Yeah.
That was not available 10 years ago?
No.
15 years ago?
15 years ago.
Certainly dial-up internet could not have handled that. Remember that? Right, exactly. So I look at some of the positives that have come out of technological advances and think, what a great time to be alive.
Yeah, really good time to be alive. And with that, every yin has its yang, man.
That's right.
And there's been some downsides too, man. Like some very scary stuff from cyber theft and attacks to information overload. Pretty much.
Yep.
I mean, you do something in Antarctica and it's somehow made its way onto social media by 30 minutes later.
Yeah.
That's unheard of.
That's right.
It's unheard of. And it's a beautiful thing to be connected, so well connected to the whole world, but at the same time, it can be overwhelming.
Our ability to handle the changes has not kept up with the pace of change.
Yeah.
And I mean that generically, like whether that's laws or ethical guidelines or even in the context that we'll get into, parents consuming technology in the home. Like we have not kept pace in our ability to deal with these changes as fast as the technology itself has changed.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that can be, I don't want to parent out of fear. But I do want to be aware of concerns. And so I throw this out there carefully and say that can be very concerning and dangerous for our kids.
Well, here's the reality, right? Like you and I often talk in opinions and experiences, but here's the reality from a U.S. News article from 2018. Research findings suggest that the blue light from devices can impact sleep patterns. Mm-hmm. We know this to be true. Social media use is linked with anxiety and higher rates of depression in young people. Yeah. Depression and body image symptoms, so anxiety, depression, and body image symptoms, and internet addiction disorder has become a medical diagnosis over in Europe. Like this is real stuff. It's not just us saying, "Oh, the younger generation," right? Like
technology's evil.
Right?
Like, it's not us yelling that.
Here are things that are manifesting themselves in reality that a conscientious parent, an engaged parent should be informed about. And so we're going to try to shine some light on some of that today, but also encourage you as listeners to begin thinking about how are you going to approach this? Yeah. What is your plan? What's your philosophy? What are some best practices that you can put in place so that you're not just completely run by technology, but that you are choosing when and how and where to engage with it?
Yeah. I'm sorry, you're going to say something.
No.
Are we beginning? Because I'll begin.
Go.
I guess my first thing is I think it's important that as parents we come to a consensus with our spouse, our partner, of how we're going to approach technology. Like, how is technology going to be a part of our family's lives,
as opposed to technology just showing up in the form of gift, entertainment, consumption,
like a bad code. Hello,
that gets shared around the whole family.
You know what I mean?
Right?
It's like, no, we don't want that. We want to be prepared. You know what I mean? And so there has to be like a consensus, and maybe the consensus could be, or one way to approach is to go the way that we use technology is that it is a tool. It is not our ruler. You know, and what I mean by that is because it arrives in our lives like a bad cold, like let's take it out, like an unexpected visitor. We are unaware of this visitor's like abilities, like in our life,
Right?
And next thing you know, it's like part of our family making decisions for us,
Right?
And running in all and to some extent in some areas of our lives, as our family's lives go, it becomes ruling our lives.
So that's a great illustration, Alon. You wouldn't let someone just walk in
No.
off the street into your house and have ready influence to everything going around.
Yeah.
Right?
No, you wouldn't. So why would you let?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And so if that's the case, that it's a tool that we are going to allow in our lives for us to use to help our lives, then that's a whole different approach.
Yep.
Now it's like, oh, since it's a tool, we need to learn how we can use this to do some cool things in our lives. And then also, we probably want to take some safety classes so that we don't allow this tool to damage our lives because we use it wrong.
Yeah.
You know, like it all of a sudden, like for me, that mindset changes. Like it changes the whole road of which I'm going to run my life on with technology.
Yeah.
Now it's not like it's running me, it's me, I'm running you, because you're here to help me to do life better.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And guess what? That's hard.
Yes, it is.
Right? Because I'm picturing the parent who is busy at work, comes home, has a busy home life, they're tired, right? They just they don't want to have to go through the process of doing the research and vetting this visitor and figuring out how the visitor can help and where the visitor might hurt, right? It's just
and maybe in you know, the last episode, I think we talked about vulnerability, and here's the vulnerable piece of this. We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know, and we don't have it all together. But there's ways that we can find out things, you know, as we are talking with other parents in our community, as we open up and discuss things, as we approach teachers, as we approach principals, as we approach coaches, and we throw out the question, and we get the pot stirring. You'd be surprised what good knowledge comes back to you by getting out there and being vulnerable and going, I have no clue about, like me, we didn't know. Like I think with our first kid, like I still had the Nokia like block phone, the analog phone. Texting, what the smack is that? I had a beeper attached to the side of my belt. Right. You know, like and then next thing you know, it's like the iPhone like came out. And, you know, it's like, what? I can watch videos on this thing? Like, oh, this is awesome. I can do Skype. Wow, this is amazing. And then, like, you know, 30 seconds later, you know, this thing is like teleporting me to other worlds. You know, it comes so fast. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know, but I can find out if I engage others and I ask questions and I let people know that I'm just trying to do right by my family. Can you help me here and give me some advice? Can you give me some information? How are you handling technology? What are some of your ways that you are like using it to help your family? And what are some like safety instructions that I probably need to like learn and help my family learn?
There's an article. There's a bias in this article toward younger kids, so like pre-K, elementary, maybe up into middle school. But there's a statement that I like. It says this: "There's no arguing that every minute you or your child is staring at a screen is a minute you're not doing important social and emotional activities, such as making eye contact, having real spontaneous conversations, moving your bodies, getting sunlight, or playing outside." And so, you know, let's make sure that our listeners understand we're not just talking about cell phones and apps here. We're talking about anything electronic, anything that has a screen, whether it's a television or a tablet, the little do they still make Leap pads for like 2 or 3 year olds, or has the iPad completely blown? I don't know. That's what my kids had 15, 20 years ago. Whatever it is, if it takes batteries or it takes electricity, it falls in this realm of technology. And the more time spent there, the less time spent in in-person, relational, eye-to-eye, emotional connection with others. Now, maybe some of you listening are thinking like, why do I want that? Well, maybe you could go back and listen to the previous episode about vulnerability and how important it is to have meaningful connections and relationships, even if it's with your own kids. Establishing those connections early and leaning in, leveraging those connections. It can't be fostered in the same way through some type of electronic medium.
Yeah. One way to do that, I think, is to in the case of cell phones, what is it for? I think having a good conversation with your kids about that is a good way to get them to see its use. It's for communication. Okay, well, it does more than communicate nowadays.
That's right.
So what else could you do with it? Well, I can play games. All right, do you play games? What else? I can watch videos. I can talk with people and such. And I think with each one of those things that it can do, I think it's good to develop a healthy habit with it, with your kid when it comes to using it.
Like some boundaries.
Yeah. So, okay, so you could talk to people. All right. So do you think it's cool if while you're trying to tell me about your day and about something good or something hard, that in the middle of it, I pick up the phone and I start talking to my boss at work and they start telling me that I need to come in and I'm going, you know what? Your conversation just isn't that well right now. So I'm going to need to go. Do you think that would be good for daddy to do to you? How would you feel?
Yeah.
That's not cool. Okay. So maybe you, from the way that you feel about it, maybe you could turn around and go, well, I don't want somebody else to feel that way. So how do I set up some healthy norms, some healthy boundaries so that when I'm talking with somebody or if I'm hanging with somebody, I'm not picking up my phone all the time to communicate with somebody else.
Yes.
One healthy habit I do is if I'm texting somebody and someone comes up and starts talking to me, I go, hey, I'm actually having a conversation through text. Can we talk here in a moment? Because I don't want to ignore you and I don't want to have my face in my phone, or if someone's talking to me and whatnot, if I get an alert on my phone, I go, hey, I just want to let you know, it was just alert. I want to stay in this conversation. Can we finish this conversation and I'll deal with that later? I don't want to dishonor you right now.
Yeah.
And having that conversation with your kids, it's important because then they build up these ways of using this thing called the cell phone that does 25 million things, help them to develop a habit with each of the things that it does. So that way it doesn't end up running them, but they run it. Yeah.
No, that's good. I'm going to go back to even younger here with this thought. So in a little bit of the research that I did, there was this suggestion that for parents of younger kids, so pre-K or kindergarten or that age, as you are working through a tablet together or letting them play on your phone or whatever it is, narrate to them. Tell them what's going on. Ask them questions like, okay, what motion did you just do there? Oh, well, I swiped left with my finger. Okay, well, what happened? Right? So the author is saying, don't just let them try to figure it out on their own. How would you approach reading a book? You wouldn't just give them the book and let them figure it out, right? Because it's foreign. Now, technology is a lot easier than to navigate than reading, but narrate it with them, engage with them, help them to understand what's going on. And and ask them questions and let them process through with you. I really liked that idea, and I guess that comes for me. It comes from a place of concern, watching so many parents give their younglings a screen to look at.
Yeah.
And it's justified because it's an educational app or it's an educational show. And I wonder, is it really about the education, or is it simply that this is easier to appease and entertain my child now than me getting on the floor or me putting down my phone or my Facebook app and engaging with them, right? Now, I know I'm probably stepping on toes and maybe sound a little critical here, but I suspect I'm not far off.
No. Another good one along that lines for parents who have younger kids is like, we're our culture is so used to binging on things, and it's almost like your escape. Like, you're in that show or you're in that movie for so long, and series of movies that it's now like 24 hours later.
Yeah.
And you haven't had any interaction at all with another human being. One thing that I heard to do with that could be useful to do with a younger child is after they've watched a show on that tablet, or after they've engaged in some educational program on your tablet or played a game, is to talk with them about what they just experienced. And so to say, oh, so how did Paw Patrol, how did you feel after that show? Engage in the human side of it.
Yeah.
How did it make you feel? What was one thing that you remember that was really cool? What was something that made you feel bad? In that show? Who's your favorite character? And this idea of allowing them to engage with another human being about what they've experienced, that helps to foster conversation, helps to foster connection and relationship, and it's not just another binging moment.
That's right.
Where they don't have any connection with anybody else but what they saw, and they're not engaged at all.
Yeah. When our oldest was young, and still watching Clifford the Big Red Dog, right?
Yeah.
That was one of the approved shows within our family. That one actually became a way to tell time, because he would ask questions like, well, how long is the drive going to be? Or how long before dinner? Or he didn't really understand time yet, but we could say, well, it'll be one Clifford, or it'll be 3 Cliffords. And so for him, it was a way to take this amount of time that he would use to watch the Big Red Dog and apply that to a real world situation.
Yeah.
Now, that's not quite as cool as sitting down and how did Clifford make you feel today? But there was an application that we engaged him to say, look, you know how much time it feels like for watching one episode. Well, let's do that 3 times, and then it will be ready, or it will happen, right?
Interesting.
It was a marker of time for us.
That's awesome.
One of the other things that I liked in doing some of this research was, as your kids are getting older, say the elementary age, help them to learn to choose wisely the content that they are consuming. I think our bias in our family when my kids were that age was to just say, this is approved, this is not approved. And we may not have always been clear as to the why. What one of the articles I read was suggesting is help them to understand why, and why this is a healthy choice or a better choice than that, right? We talk about fruits and vegetables and candy and all of that. Maybe that same type of thinking comes into play as you're helping your kids to wisely consume, wisely choose the content that they are that they're consuming, whether it's TV or video or games or whatever,
and wisely choose what they're ready for. This stems from, and I wish I could recall what article I was reading, But this stems from, the last part that I was talking about, like asking them how they felt after watching as a young kid a show, or what was their favorite character, what was someone that they were like, I don't like that person or whatever, or how did, like, what was cool, what was not cool. Like, you start to allow them to become aware of themselves.
Yeah.
The more they're aware of themselves and who they are, then they can also start making some choices about what they're going to allow in their lives. Because if it doesn't connect with them, like, in a sense of like, it doesn't jive with who they are,
Yeah.
they're probably going to be least likely to be like, I want that, and so, like sitting down with your kid as they get older in like elementary, middle school age, and going, okay, what have you been engaging in when it comes to like technology? Well, remember when I used to ask you how it made you feel? How are you feeling now? What are some of the pros about what you're watching right now? What are some of the cons? Like, what are they like? I love this. I use this with my kids and with students that I talk with. Is like, what are you catching? What are they throwing, and what are you catching? Like the message, basically. So it's like, I remember I took a group of students to the mall, and I was like, I want you to walk around the mall, and I want you to tell me the different messages that are being thrown your way from the different stores. And kids came back with predominantly, sex sells, man.
Interesting.
Sex sells. Okay, yep. Well, that's what they're throwing, but what are you catching? What are you catching from the message that they're throwing? That jeans are cool. So sex sells, and jeans are cool. Are you catching both, or are you catching that I like those jeans? Like, tell me where you're at. And this idea, and that can start younger. I think that starts earlier. I think that starts, like, these were high school students that I was dealing with at the time, but we can start teaching our kids that as in elementary age and middle school age, to be able to not only after like starting to become aware of who they are, but also understanding like what messages are being brought to their attention. Some of them are hard fastballs,
yep.
And if we don't teach them to catch like the good part of that message, and to let the other stuff go, or to see like, dude, this ball is not for me.
Yep.
I shouldn't be swinging at this.
Yep.
Like, we're gonna do them disservice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, I'm with you. I like that. It dovetails with one of the thoughts that I had here, is that helping our kids, even ourselves, right, as the adults, being aware of the motive behind what is being pushed at you in terms of content, what is being pushed at you in terms of device or an app or whatever. Yeah. What is the motive behind it?
Yeah.
What is that message that's being sent? What is the intent of the sender? And when you can step back and ask yourself, is there a different message here that's being sent? Or is there a message here that may not be most beneficial for me? Like, that's part of the victory, is even being able to see and ask that question.
It's important, And again, this is not just with like social media or whatnot. This is like stuff like, one message. One of my kids got the message like of, why is Apple trying to get me to get a new phone every year? Like, it's like they caught it at a young age. Like everyone's trying to sell me a new phone every year. Right. This phone works just fine.
Right.
But the message was, you need a new phone. And isn't that interesting? Like, it's advancing. Technology is advancing so fast that if you don't have the latest thing, you are obsolete. Yeah. That's the message that is thrown.
That's right.
Which is not true. It's not true, really. Like, your phone may not be able to take photos that are like, what's that
3D?
weird one? Like 3D or something. but it still works.
Right. You have a phone.
You have
high quality phone.
A very high
or I mean, a camera, a very high quality camera.
You have a supercomputer in your pocket. Like you are doing just fine. And so helping our kids understand that's what I'm talking about when catch a message. What does the message mean thrown? And are you catching something out of it?
Yeah.
Like, can you see past the fastball that is being thrown at you?
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. And I think that for many of us adults that are parents, it's a huge question that we can wrestle with answering, right? Not just for our kids. Because if we can't answer it, then guarantee our kids can't answer it.
Sure.
Or most likely they can't answer it. Maybe some kids are more savvy.
And in a piece of being vulnerable is to let your kids know, like, that's something I'm dealing with.
Right.
I don't have an answer for that. Maybe we could talk about it together.
Right.
What an awesome way to again engage with your kid.
That's right. That's right. So listeners, here are a couple questions that we'll leave you with as you're reflecting back on the conversation. Maybe some of the things that we said struck a chord. Maybe it's encouraging you to keep going. Maybe it's challenging you to start something. So what is your technology or your electronics policy as a family? And I don't necessarily mean rights and rules and obligations. Like, what is your philosophy? What is your approach to this visitor into your home called technology? And what are you going to do with it? And then where do you need to engage? Whether that's as a leader or as modeling something, as a protector for your kids and the safety of your family. Where do you, as dad, where do you need to engage? Mm-hmm. And wherever that is, we would encourage you to take some steps in that direction.
Yeah. And don't let the visitor overrun your house.
That's right. That's right. That's a great illustration. I'm going to take that one with me for a while.
Sure.
Well, dude, thank you. Listeners, if you want to continue on in this conversation and contribute, you can hit us up at feedback@thenextmanup.com, or you can share this one with someone who might benefit from listening, and we would certainly appreciate that. All right, folks, until next time.
Adios.
Adios. Hey, listeners, thanks for journeying with us on this Next Man Up podcast. We would love to hear from you. Maybe you have a question or an idea, perhaps a topic for us to consider. If that's you and you want to reach out to us, you can get us at feedback@thenextmanup.com. That's feedback@thenextmanup.com. Again, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we'll see you later.